Okay. So number 33, can we rewrite this as cotangent 90 minus theta? Is that a true statement? Is that cotangent 90 minus theta? Is that really tan theta? Yes. So cotangent 90 minus theta equals cotangent 45 minus 2 theta. We already know what we're solving for. Sorry, it was. Sorry. So if you want to solve for theta, what do you know about two things that are cotangent of some angle equals cotangent of some other angle? What do you know about those two angles? These are complementary. Okay. So if you have cotangent angle equals cotangent of a different angle, actually the angles have to be the same. It can't be a different angle. So if we have the same trig function, that's why it's important to have the same trig function, then those two angles must be the same. And now we just need to solve for theta. Okay? Add theta, subtract 45. So I've got a 3 theta equals 45. I'm going to divide by 3. And then it's just algebra. Okay. But the first step is always the most difficult. Figuring out what do I have to do from here to here. Okay. Going on to 47. What about 47? What does it say? Find cotangent s plus t and cotangent s minus t if cosine s equals negative 1/5 and sine t equals 3/5 and s and t are in quadrant 2. So we're trying to find, what are we trying to find? Okay. So with these, what do we have to do? We didn't do one yesterday, but we've done one recently. Okay. Should we draw a triangle? How many triangles should we draw? 2. Because there's a triangle for S and then there's a triangle for T. So if I draw an S triangle, the angle S being down here, cosine S is negative 1/5. So what does that mean? Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. I've got a 1 and a 5, or if you want to even say a negative. For quadrant 2, cosine has to be negative. What is my opposite? So we got 25 minus 1, so it's the square root of 24, which I believe is 2 on the square root of 6. That's true. Is that true? Okay. And then there's a T triangle, where the sine T, meaning if I'm putting angle T here, the opposite is 3 and the hypotenuse is 5. What's the adjacent? Oh, that one was a little easier. Now, what do we have to know? What's another thing that we have to do with these? We need to know some equations. So I wonder if I can move this. Oh, I can. It just moved all by itself. Okay, sorry. So if I write, what is cosine S plus is to write that equation out. Is you write it out. Writing it out helps you remember it. It's going to be what? Cosine minus sine. So what is cosine S? Oh, did I find these pieces? What is, can I go right? What is sine S? And what is cosine T? Do I need to think about negative signs? We're in quadrant 2, so both my cosines should be negative. Alright, so let's go in our formula. What is cosine S? I have seen, I don't like to see, cosine negative 1/5. S is not negative 1/5. Cosine S is negative 1/5. Okay? You're never going to put these fractions in for just the S or the T. Okay? So if you see cosine S, you're going to plug in what is cosine S? Negative 1/5. What's cosine T? Negative 4/5. Minus S, 2 on the square root is 6/5. And sine T is, all those denominators are 5s. Okay, so when we multiply fractions, what do we get? It's negative 1/5 times negative 4/5. 4/25 minus 6 on the square root is 6/25. So what do we have? 4 minus 6 on the square root of 6/25. They're happier when they were just plain numbers. Okay. I'm trying to keep enough room so I can just see, because what happens when we want to do cosine S minus T? Flip what? So cosine S. So we're going to add and subtract. S minus T would simply cosine S, cosine T, plus sine S, sine T. So should it be the exact same numbers? I'm going to write it down, even though you really don't have to. It's the exact same thing. Times 36. So we have 4 plus 6 on the square root of 6 all over 25. Simple as that. Anything else on 5.3 other than these two? Yes. What other questions?
I think we use it on 41 and 45C, finding the quadrant.
Defining the quadrant, which we didn't do, which I won't make you do. I won't make you do. It's okay. I'm sorry, and whoever came and asked me yesterday was like, yeah, I'm not going to make you do that. I totally forgot that it asked you that. No worries. Any others? 5.4? 17, 18? We didn't do it. Just 17, 15. Alright, so let's look starting at 15. Looking from 5.4, number 15. If you have sine 76, cosine 31, minus cosine 76, sine 31. So, what are they doing here? You will see one of these for sure. You have a sine, cosine, cosine, sine. What function is that? Is it a cosine or is it a sine? It's a sine. Sine is the one that mixes them up. Okay, if it's a sine function and there's a minus sign in the middle, what do we do with these two numbers? Subtract. So what's 76 minus 31? What was it? 45 degrees. So do you know, can you find what is sine of 45 degrees? Okay. Draw a triangle. I believe we're left with a square root of 2 over 2. I think so. Okay, so biggest key is figuring out which function it is. Is it a sine or is it a cosine? And then the subtraction and sine means we're subtracting. If it's a subtraction and cosine means we're adding. Okay? And they always have to turn out something you know or that you could find. Okay? Whether it comes out as 120, I can find sine of 120. Okay? 17. They do one of the same type things, but with tangent. Okay? So tangent 80 plus tan 55, that does not look like a tan, a plus, divided by 1 minus tan 80. Tan 55. What is that going to be? So I think it's kind of obvious. It's a tangent function. Maybe just maybe. But then the question is, am I adding it? Am I adding or am I subtracting the A and the B? If there's a plus on top, that means sine was on top. There was a plus. Cosine with a plus is a minus on the bottom. Okay? So, what should it be? Should it be a plus? It should be. So, what's 80 plus 55? I don't know. Is it 135? So, what is tangent of 135 degrees? It's not immediate jump out like this sine 45, but it's on my plate. I can find a reference angle, right? What's the reference angle? Little hint, anything that ends in a 5 is a 45 degree angle. So what's tangent 45 degrees? 1. Which quadrant am I in? The second quadrant, so it would be -1. Yes, sir.
If there's a minus sign on top, it would be.
And a plus on the bottom. Mm-hmm. Yes. When we went over tangent, because tangent is sine over cosine, so we have a sine A plus B over cosine A plus B. So sine A plus is going to be a plus on the top. Cosine A plus B is going to be a minus in the bottom. And that's how I kind of work that out in my head. Okay. So, and then what other number? What did I say? 45? No. Yes. No.
The 10 ones for 41.
Okay. Which one would you rather me do? 45. Okay. If you know cosine S is -8/17 and cosine T equals -3/5. And they're both in quadrant 3. Okay. So, what can you find? What are we going to do? Just like we did in the last one that we did. Are we going to draw a triangle? Okay, are we going to draw 2 triangles? Yes. So, first triangle for S. The opposite is 8. The hypotenuse is 17. What's the adjacent?
Wait,
No,
the
it's the adjacent.
Yeah, okay, we'll just put S up here. Sorry, I'm going cosine S. I'm thinking sine. I don't know what I'm. So is it a 15? Okay. What about this one over here for T? Is it a 4? So if my T is at the top, I've got a 3, a 4, and a 5. Now to find cosine S, or no, it wasn't cosine, sine S plus T, you had to find the sine function. Could you find the tangent ones also? So could we find sine S equals 15 over 17, which I'm pretty sure it's negative. Could we also find tangent S? Opposite over adjacent. Okay? And then can we find sine T equals negative 4/5 and tangent T equals 4/3? Okay? So if you want to find the tangent, I think that was the specific question, tan A plus B. We know it's tan A plus tan B over 1 minus tan A tan B, which I should be using S&T. So we're just simply plugging in. We're here at the top, we're adding them. On the bottom, we're subtracting after we've multiplied them together. So, do I have to get common denominators? Okay, in denominator, I probably would, when I'm multiplying, I am going to reduce here. 3 goes into 15, that's a 1 and a 2. This is 5 halves, 1 minus 5 halves, 2 over 2. Oh my goodness, that's negative 3 halves on the bottom. Maybe, yes. 2 over 2 minus 5 over 2, I think. On the top, I got to get common denominators. 24? 24. Say that.
Oh, it's adding.
It's an addition, so I have to get common denominators.
Yeah, so 45.
45. Say 32, yes. 77 over 24 divided by negative 3 halves. So I'm going to keep change, bless you. Negative 2/3. I am going to reduce. 1 goes into that, 12. So now I have negative 77 over 36. What? That was, I actually had the worst number I've ever had before the other day in calculus. Ever. It was negative, there were 3 commas. Negative 439, comma, and then a whole bunch more numbers. I would love for it to be turned in.
Can I visit it tomorrow?
Yes.